Geography and weather. When we talk about geography and weather, there are four areas we look at. We'll be discussing more of these in future videos. There's lithosphere, litho meaning rock. These are the solid parts of the earth, our land basically, and all the rocks and minerals under the land. The atmosphere, which is the air. The hydrosphere, which is our water. This is not only our oceans and lakes, but our rivers and even our marshes as well. And then the biosphere, all the living things. Pythagoras, who developed the Pythagorean theorem with a squared plus b squared equals c squared, actually developed pretty close to within 500 miles that the Earth was round. It was not sought out first by Columbus, but Pythagoras himself. And his proof was two things. If you've ever been in the ocean, you see a ship that's going away. It appears to be sinking below the horizon. That's the curvature. Or if it's coming towards you, it seems to be rising up. Also, the curved shadow on the moon cast by the Earth during a lunar eclipse. Now we have satellites and photographs, as well as we know the movement of the Earth, as well as their planets. Now, he thought it was a perfect sphere, but Isaac Newton said because of the rotation of it, it bulges out in the middle. Not much. This is called an oblate spheroid rather than a perfect sphere. It is, in other words, from the North Pole to the South Pole, it's got a diameter of 7,900 miles. But it's 27 miles wider from across the equator. So that is very slight, nothing you would really notice. But it is an oblate spheroid. Earth is roughly 8,000 miles in diameter. If you go all the way around it, the circumference of it, it's 25,000 miles. Now, it is relatively smooth. They said if the Earth was if the radius of the Earth was a 30-story building, Mount Everest would only be a single brick in height. So this gives you a scale of how large the Earth is. Now, longitude and latitude are ways to define location on a sphere. These are called meridians for longitude, going from up and down. And then the parallel lines going across it are the latitudes. We talk about meridians to go how far north or south it is, and then the latitudes are for east or west. Now, one of the things I keep in mind is the Earth is tilted 23 degrees, and this has quite a bit of effect on a lot of things. We're not rotating straight up and down. It is tilted at 23 degrees, 23 and a half to be exact. And our North Pole is actually pointing right now towards the North Star. And this 23 degrees tilt means actually on the first day of summer, the Tropic of Cancer, that line that goes through Mexico here, it's actually slightly closer to the sun than the equator is the center. First day of winter, the Tropic of Capricorn, you can see going through South America here, it's actually closer to the sun than the equator. We define our longitude going from the North Pole to the South Pole. The international date line is called the prime meridian that goes to Greenwich, England. Because the tilt of the Earth is rotated on an axis, we have our four seasons. As I said, we define them by our Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn. The summer is when it's closest to the sun at that moment. Winter is the first day of winter is when it's closest to the sun for the Tropic of Capricorn. And then halfway between those is our spring and fall equinoxes. Now, the summer solstice is basically the first day of summer, June 21st. Our winter solstice is December 21st, first day of winter. Now, because of the tilt of the Earth, in the summer, the Arctic Circle, the North Pole, the polar the Earth rotates around, gets 6 months of sunlight. As you can see, there's a shadow there, but because that tilt is always getting sunlight, and then the South Pole is always in the dark for those 6 months. Then, as it moves around, the North Pole ends up 6 months of darkness because of the tilt, and then the South Pole gets 6 months of sun. So this is how we define the Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn, the first day of summer when the Earth is closest to the sun, and then Tropic of Capricorn when it's closest to the sun that way. Alright, talk about time. We got to remember it takes 365 days for the Earth to make one complete orbit around the sun. It's actually 365 and 1/4 days. That's why we have a leap year. 1/4 days after 4 years is an extra day. So we have an extra day every February 29th every 4 years. Now, time zones, these are based on the longitudes. And what we look at here is split up among, there's 24 longitudes, and there are 24 time zones. But as you can see here, they're not perfectly aligned, even though they should be. A lot of this has to do with political components, a lot has to do with other countries. And if you look at Greenland here, it almost goes through nearly 4 time zones, but they've just made it one, since the majority of people live in one area. You can see in the United States, it basically meanders back and forth through the state boundaries there. Russia has the most, has 11 time zones throughout it. As says Greenland only has 1. So even through Africa, you can see it meanders between the different countries. Now, the daylight savings times, and there's many reasons or rationales why, and it's never really defined why they have daylight savings time. Kids didn't want kids in the fall getting on buses in the dark, or people work longer in the late summer, early fall to harvest their fields. However, it's never really been formally shown. And not all states in the United States alone recognize daylight savings time. Arizona and Hawaii do not use it. They have the same time year round. Same thing as with Indiana does not recognize it. Now, even in Arizona, which is in the Western time zone, they do respect daylight savings time, but the Navajo Indian Reservation does not. But then the Hopi Reservation within the Navajo Nation does. So you could drive from Flagstaff into the Hopi Reservation and change times 3 times, all within 20 miles. One of the components with our weather and our rotation is the orographic effect. Usually, throughout the world, most mountain ranges have rainforest on one side, and they're so tall, such as in the Rockies, or even within the Andes. The other side is desert because those mountains are so tall, the clouds can't make it over. So constant rains on one side, no rain gets on the other, and that's called the orographic effect. Now, weather is very short term. This is the day by day or week by week. Climate is long term. Weather could be rainy today, sunny tomorrow, partially cloudy the day after. Climate is long term. The average temperature year-round, the average precipitation year-round, such as a desert has much more drier climate year-round than does a mountain, which is much colder year-round. Weather short-term, climate is long-term. As I said, usually look at climate actually long-term, like 30 plus years to determine variations in the average. I'm not going to go into great detail about the different climate classifications. There are 6: tropical, desert, mesothermal, which is mild winter, which is what Georgia's in. Macrothermal, such as cold winter, such as in Canada and Russia, Alaska. Polar, which is at the North and South Poles. And highlands, similar polar, except these are in mountains and plateaus throughout the world. Another component is political geography. A lot of the geography we have affects the politics. Our land surfaces often make boundaries. If you look at rivers and oceans, those are often boundaries. Different locations of resources also can define boundaries and can cause issues from nation to nation. Now, until World War II, there are only 50 countries. There's now 192 that are formally recognized by the United Nations. A lot of this has to do with former colonialism and these these colonies of Great Britain, the United States, France, the Netherlands, gaining their independence, becoming separate entities, separate countries. Now we talk about state, nation states. State also refers to a country. We look at Korea. Ever since the Korean War, there has been two Koreas, North Korea and South Korea, and the wars actually there's never been peace formally declared. It's a stalemate. You can see North Korea is the dark here, and South Korea is where it's light right here. It's interesting because you can see how much lower income that North Korea has. They only light up their capital basically, which is Pyongyang. At Seoul, the brightest part of South Korea. And above North Korea, that bright light above, that's China, that's Beijing. Now, they would like the countries to unite, but you got communism on one side and then democracy on the other. Same as after the Chinese Civil War, when the Democrats lost, they fled down to Taiwan. Now, mainland China has claimed that Taiwan is part of their country. The people in Taiwan say, no, we are not part of the country, we're our own country. And this is why the United States has ships often patrolling around it, because it's going to make China hesitate to come try to go get it. So, we recognize Communist China as a country, but also recognize Taiwan, which is, I think, a population of about 200 million people. Now, a lot of African countries were divided up by colonists from Europe, and they gained, over the last 75 years, a lot of their independence, such as in Morocco, which was controlled by Spain. Other countries very similar like that. Now, the largest country in the world, geographically, is Russia, 6.6 million square miles, 11% of total land area. The countries of China, Canada, United States, Brazil, and Australia, the only states of more than 2.9 million square miles. On the other extreme, we have microstates. The smallest country in the world is Monaco, which is in Europe, 0.6 square miles. The second smallest country is the Vatican City, which is located in Rome, but it is considered a separate entity. And we never had the concept of a state being a country before 1800s. It's wherever a country was. The Roman Empire did not have formal boundaries. Wherever it was and conquered was considered part of the Roman Empire. We had colonialism in the 1800s as countries in Europe, such as England, the Netherlands, Germany, Spain, Italy, Portugal, were looking to expand in other parts of the world as they realized there was a quote-unquote new world out there. The Western Hemisphere was discovered to gain more resources, and because of the vast overpopulation as people were living longer. This is called the God Golden Glory. Their rationale was to promote Christianity, but they really wanted to gain valuable resources and show their relative power to each other. Hence, God Golden Glory for the colonialism. European started with the Americas, basically primarily North America, and then to a lesser degree South America, and then they started turning towards Africa and Asia. And they basically took them over, imperialism. Great Britain was called the empire where the sun never sets, because at any time, wherever Great Britain had colonies, the sun was up, whether it is in the UK itself, or in the United States, Canada, Australia. They had the Hawaiian Islands before the Americans had them, parts of Africa, even India. So most of them in the British colonies, there were peaceful transitions to independence, and a lot of these, they realized they still need the economic behind it. It was more economical to give them their independence rather than fight them. So a lot of more countries were developed, especially in the Middle East and Africa, after World War II. These boundaries can also cause many issues between countries. And we have the shape of the countries, which is important, which shows a lot of issues. There are 5 basic shapes: compact, prorupted, elongated, fragmented, and perforated. Now I'm going to go over these. Now, compact countries, the United States is a compact country. This is Poland right here. And you can see it has basically equidistant from the center all the way around. It has easy access to seaports, has many transportation modes throughout here. You can see it can fly from one place to another. There are many roads going to many other countries. And I'm looking at the countries that surround it: Germany, the Czech Republic, Ukraine, Belarus, Russia, and even Lithuania. And again, as I said, it has strong, wide seaports. So it has good communication throughout. And this is a nice thing about compact country. It's very efficient, multiple areas. Corrupted countries usually have areas where it's easy to disrupt. And if we look at this, for example, Afghanistan separates Russia from Pakistan, and these Afghanistan and Pakistan both have strong Muslim backgrounds there. A lot of people are Muslim, where Russia is not. Another area such as Congo stretches the Atlantic Ocean, and we have proruptions, which can cause many issues here. Here's a good example right here: the Democratic Republic of the Congo. I got an arrow pointing here. There's only has one location for a seaport. This country is surrounded by other countries, and there's only one location for a seaport, and that is that little area right there. It'd be easy for another country to block it pretty easily, causing a lot of problems of trade. Elongate countries have a long, narrow shape, such as Chile, which is over 2,500 miles long, but only 90 miles at its widest. Even Italy is 700 by 120 miles. And if you look at Chile here, look how long it is from north to south. It's got a great ocean side, but you're going to have problems here. It used to be communications, but now with wireless and the internet, that's not as big a deal. However, if you think about the tax problems, you got people in the northern area where it's colder. They're not going to want to pay taxes for air conditioners. In the south, where it's very warm, or in the extreme south, where it's again cold and close to the Antarctic Circle. And there's going to be different issues here. So different people, we're in different geographies, are not going to pay taxes for other things. And this could be a problem with a long, narrow country. You got different climates. Another example is Senegal here, which completely surrounds Gambia. And the Gambia does have access to a strong port down this river, but Senegal does not have any. It has only one river going partially within it. So relationships are very important, but this can be an issue where one country completely surrounds another country. Fragmented area, almost all separated by water, or a lesser degree separated by another country. Yeah, Indonesia, 13,677 islands over 3,000 miles. 80% lives on the 2 islands of Java and Sumatra, but with 13,677 islands, very difficult people living in the other islands to get to a hospital, to get school, to get medical care, to get groceries even. We can't put a grocery store or a hospital on all 13,000 islands. They actually have also communication, literally. Also, they have tax incentives for people to move to one of the larger islands where we can take care of most of the people. But that's still at least 20% outside of where the majority of the population live. And as you see, this is spread over 3,000 square miles.